Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
I've been doing this podcast since September of 2012, and boy, are my lips tired.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Not sure if we're going to get a visit from Alex today. I have a feeling we're not. Obviously, we know that she's been dealing with a lot of stuff. So, Alex, if you aren't able to make it, we'll miss you, but we'll see you again in the next week or two. And I'm pretty sure Dan's over in the Middle East right now and has been for a while. So we're not going to see him for a couple months. Logan is my guest today, Logan Shippy, and Logan, he's like a world traveler. He is everywhere. He's kind of like, what's that little cartoon character that you find everywhere, right? He's like a cartoon character.
One of those.
Yeah, he's one of those. He is like a world traveler and an amazing, amazing person. But that's all right. We'll have to save introducing him to you on another day. Today, we're going to get to know you. Logan Shippy, first of all, I got to compliment you on your last name. For the business that you're in, you have absolutely the perfect last name.
Yeah.
Because you're in the e-commerce business. And what happens in e-commerce? There's shipping that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
So Logan Shippy, I love the name. That's fabulous.
Yeah, when it was funny. It's funny actually, like when this was probably about a year ago, because I've been involved in the e-commerce space like 7 years, but from like a social media perspective and like, doing our automation service where we scale stores for investors,
Sure.
Really putting it out there on social media, showing people what we do, stores that we manage, performance, all that. People started thinking that my name was an alias. Like, oh, that can't be real. Like a bunch of people asked me that. They said, "Hey, is that your real last name?" And it started happening all at once. Like it was random. No one said anything, and then all of a sudden it was like a year into social media content. People, is that your real last name? Yeah. And at first, I was like, "What do you mean?" And then it dawned on me exactly what you said, Shippy. I'm like, "Oh, well, actually, I guess I'm meant to be where I'm at." Is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a certain degree of destiny going on here, and that's appropriate. That's good. So tell us, now that we know that there's some destiny involved, tell us how you actually got involved in this. This is an interesting field to be in.
Stumbled into it backwards, for
really?
Sure. And that's like everything that I've ever done is not because I necessarily had this dead set, like, I want to do e-commerce. Because, for me growing up, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. Mom and dad run their own landscape construction business. Aunts and uncles do the same. Grandpa ran a multi-million-dollar vitamin business. So just business ownership and entrepreneurship was instilled in me since I was born. It just seemed normal. And got involved in entrepreneurship when I was about probably about 16 years old. Started actually producing engineering music. Turned that into a part-time gig while I was working in restaurants. And then that turned into a full-time thing where I didn't have to work in restaurants. I just produced engineered music, learned a lot about like the creativity of sound. Yeah. And looking back at it now, that was really helpful for me to transition into marketing, because once you understand how to manipulate sound on like these different programs, such as Pro Tools or Logic, a lot of the same type of UI UX interface is the same way on Final Cut and editing videos and whatnot. And like, I just became very familiar with that. And so when I got more so fascinated with marketing and sales and affiliate marketing, I was like, okay, I know how to work like the music type programs. Let me take a stab at marketing with visuals instead of just sound. And it was this just kind of like destined, progression to work from sound into visual and then put the two together. And from my first year doing affiliate marketing, learning how to drive traffic online and sell digital goods, went from making like probably 30, 40 grand a year with music, being like 18 years old. Then at 20, 21, getting involved in affiliate marketing, going and basically almost 10xing my income in a single year. And, I stuck and stayed in the affiliate marketing world for a while, multiple years. And then I had a couple friends that got involved with drop shipping on eBay and eventually Amazon and then other marketplaces over time. And it really fascinated me because it's like, okay, well, you're not necessarily having to be good at sales. You're not having to talk to the end customer and tell them why they should buy this product. These people are just going on these marketplaces and buying things like toilet paper or, kitchen items or whatever they're buying online on a day-to-day basis. And that chart, you can go look at the stock market. You can go look at crypto. You can go look at real estate. Like a lot of it's going up to the right, but then it's tanking right now. Look at tech stocks down 80, 90%, whatever. They've had a rally recently, but when you look at the e-commerce chart, the amount of users that keep on gravitating towards these platforms on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, that chart just keeps on going up and to the right. And so I recognize a trend that things have gone from brick and mortar to click and order. I want to take advantage of that. I had a few friends that had built out their own operations for like sourcing and hiring and training employees. And they wanted to bring me on as the guy that was more so the forward face. Like, hey, if we're gonna offer this as a service to bring on investors and manage their stores for them, because we've done it so successfully in-house, we could kind of duplicate the process and just use the capital from investors. But the guys that I work with were not good at marketing.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, well, we need the charismatic guy that's the face that can make this thing look cool. And, it is cool. It's like, just you can generate true passive income online with e-commerce if you understand how to automate things correctly, which is what we do by sourcing and hiring and training employees and designating them to do product research and list products and process orders and all that stuff. But I came into e-commerce, like learned the ins and outs, saw a bunch of different operations from drop shipping to FBA to private label, all the different ways you can make money with e-commerce, because there are certain strategies where you can, with drop shipping, you can technically find a supplier, list a product at a high price. It sells at a high price. Then you go use your credit card to purchase that same product at a low price and send it to the end customer. So technically you're selling high and then buying low, and then just being the middleman between the transaction. Whereas with FBA or private label, you're buying low and then selling high. But with buying low and selling high, you have risk exposure, because what if the product doesn't sell after you've bought it? So we've come up with this hybrid model to where we're implementing both drop shipping with approved suppliers and then doing private label, where we actually build products from scratch. But again, getting into that, it was like stumbled into it backwards. Was in affiliate marketing, the online space. And then I've just met so many cool people in that world. And then eventually, some of my close buddies started crushing with e-commerce, and then they brought me in. And I learned quickly, like, I don't want to be the guy that's doing the product research and listing products, because it's time consuming. Yes. So I can understand why we have a very attractive offer to investors, because, people with money tend to be busy, and people with money want to make more money. And, if you're making $100,000 a year, okay, you'll be 10 times cooler making $1 million a year, right? Like, don't be afraid of money. Money provides you freedom. So for us, with what we do, again, it's very attractive. And I know this firsthand, because like I see what goes into running these stores, and there's no way that like one person can run an e-commerce store at scale. You need to have outsourced teams to be able to do this. So an example would be like, you have a couple guys that are just designated to product research, a couple guys that are just designated, guys, girls, whatever, to listing products and processing orders as they come in. You need to have a team assembled, so that way, you as the business owner, you're not wearing all the hats. Just like if you run a restaurant, you're not going to be at the front table checking people in and also be the server, also be the chef.
Same thing goes anywhere that way.
Exactly. Yeah. So stumbled into e-commerce kind of backwards and by accident, but the common denominator of why I ended up in there is because I was already in the online space. Yeah. And I had the connections.
And it sounds like good connections too.
Oh yeah.
Great. I can tell already many listeners' synapses are snapping as they're trying to keep up with all the acronyms and the terminology and so forth. So I won't try to iron all of them out, because he threw about 50 terms out there. I'll throw a couple out. UI, UX, user interface, user experience. It's all about how the person interacts with the website, what all that's like. E-commerce platform, there are different kinds of ways, different platforms you can sell your stuff on. Scaling is about building up your business. We'll get into a bunch of these, but I guess what I'm saying is, don't be just completely turned off by all the terminology. We'll dumb it down a little bit.
I'll try to dumb it down a bit.
Yeah.
If I were to retrace a couple of those steps, basically some of these programs that you use, online, like let's say you use Facebook and Instagram, where the buttons are and everything like that. That's what the UI UX
is. The UI UX.
And so when you're using a program, let's say you're recording, just like how we're recording this podcast, there are certain button layouts on the programs to use them. And it's like, okay, well, this program works this way. There's another program that works kind of similar. So if I'm trying to create content and just manipulate the sound and manipulate the visuals, like click at the button, do it this way. That's what I was learning at an early stage. Right. And then I studied the psychology, man, like understanding sales, watching videos, not necessarily even like trying to, like when I see ads, I'm watching I appreciate the art of sale. You know, I'm watching the advertisements, like not necessarily what is he selling, but how is he selling it? Or how is she selling it? How are they positioning the offer? How are they exaggerating the problem and making a crafting the solution to really solve that problem? And so like that's what I did for from reading books to studying marketing and advertising, and then to the creative side, actually developing content. It's a progression, a crawl, walk, run thing. And once you understand that kind of that flow and that the you have the base skills, you can take those base skills into multiple businesses. Like for me, I have the e-commerce business, which is great. Like you don't need to be skilled at sales to sell on e-commerce. You just have to understand how to build systems.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have a software development company where we actively build softwares and apps for influencers and companies, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I have a main flagship product that we built in that software development company called TrueFans, and that's a platform that helps influencers monetize their content.
Okay.
So that's been amazing, and like we're just about to launch a bunch of ads because we've got to thousands of users, thousands of content creators on our platform, but hundreds of thousands of users in total. And it's been like organic in the sense of us not paying for advertising on platforms because, when you're a startup, you got to make sure that you're not just blowing money. We put like probably
easy to do, by the way.
Way easy. We didn't raise any money. We bootstrapped it. We built the technology, everything in-house, which I have an amazing development team that's, like usually 1/3 the cost of US devs, which, we're blessed to have amazing developers. But yeah, you don't want to just like blow through money. So we spent probably about like 50 grand in total to get maybe 35 to 40 grand in that range to get the product originally launched, the actual SaaS platform, SaaS, software as a service.
Thank you.
Dumbing it down. And we launched that. And then we just went to work like organically DMing influencers and showing them our platform and booking Calendly calls. No fancy funnel, no fancy website, none of that. And we ended up getting to like, 100, 200, 500 influencers as the revenue started ticking up, like making 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month, 30, 50, 100,000 a month. Then we started investing in like, how do we scale up the outreach methodology that we were implementing without necessarily spending money on paid ads. So like we hired on VAs and then hooked them up to Instagram accounts to duplicate our efforts of just DMing per day. So that's a very cost-effective strategy to reach a lot of people. Because if you have one VA, a virtual assistant that's in the Philippines, and you pay him $200 a month, and you tell him, hey, you have to send out 50 DMs per day this specific way to this target audience, then it's like, well, if you have 5 of those, let's say you had 10 VAs working for you, sending out 50 messages a day, that's 500 messages per day that's going to your target audience. And you're only spending 10 times $200 a month, that's $2,000 a month. And you're getting how many messages sent out? So that's the scaling of manual outreach is what we've done on TrueFans. So that's like a system thing, but then the content that they're sending to the influencers to get them interested is the creative content that I've developed that it's taken time to build that skill, the marketing and sales background that I have and the creativity, putting it all together. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, it sounds like a lot, but it's just skills that I've acquired over time. And I think that, different people are going to be strong at different things. Like some people are going to be more systems driven. Some people are going to be more creative. Some people can do both. It's rare that you can kind of find both. I'm one of those like hybrid type of people that, but I also have really solid people to help in the areas that I suck, which I'm like not good with legal docs. I'm not good with like the contractual, like that's not my forte. The FAQs, that's like all that stuff is my worst nightmare. So I have really solid partners to help in areas where I suck. But yeah, so it's just like when you tie it all together, really, I've harnessed the skill of creative content and sales and knowing what type of systems will work. But then once I kind of build out the system, then I have the firepower and bringing in like a team of people to help me build the system. So I don't have to be working in it. I can kind of work on it, if that makes sense. Like oversee it as it's happening.
Yeah, it does make sense, and it makes sense to me anyway. I can't speak for the listeners necessarily.
Yeah.
I'm continuing to keep their thoughts in mind here because I do have some background with this. But for those who don't have background with it, it can be not only confusing, it can also be intimidating.
Oh, for sure is.
You talked about all these different skills that you have, and I'm thinking listeners are saying, "Well, I don't have those skills."
But I didn't have any of those skills 10 years ago. You know, like a decade ago, I was I mean, I'm 29 now, so like 20 basically at like 18 years old is when I started getting into marketing. And now, you know, everyone's marketing with taking pictures on Instagram, and you know, there you could build $1 million business just from, you know, pictures and videos on your phone. Like you really can. You can sell education. You chances are you know something. You have a particular skill set or knowledge about a particular field, and you could monetize that. You know, a lot of people sleep on that. But the reason why they sleep on it is because they're intimidated of what will people think if I put it out there, and it's not, you know, just the fear of failure. It is what holds a lot of people back. And for me, I realized
fear of failure, but also fear of technology.
True,
Technology is
true.
a gigantic fear for a lot of people. And I mean, a lot of the things we're talking about here, almost all we've talked about so far, has been technology driven, and that scares the pants off of people. I don't care what age they are. We're not just talking the baby boomers, you know, the millennials, the Gen Zs. There are a lot of them that are intimidated by it too, even though they grew up with it. It's like, no, hey, you know, this is a little bit rough stuff to try to deal with. I can handle a Facebook account. I can handle an Instagram account. I don't know if I can handle this other stuff.
I mean, but look at you, man. You're running a podcast. You're running a digital show, right? Like, and it's would you have ever thought that you were doing this? You know, you've been doing it for what you said, 10, 12 years, somewhere in that range. You know, take it back 20 years. It's like, I'm doing what? I'm running a podcast. I'm interviewing guests from across the world through technology, and I'm live streaming it, and I'm doing this. So like, you know, when you look at technology seems scary, but it's scary in the sense that there's so many moving pieces to technology. But over time, as if technology is something that you're interested in, like for me, I was interested in software. I was interested in building tech because the largest companies in the world are tech. You look at Amazon. You know, Amazon's e-commerce. It's online. It's a digital, you know, website that's selling physical goods.
Right.
So it's kind of a mixture between it's not full digital. And that's why a lot of investors, when they come work with us, it's like, it makes sense to them because crypto is just too much for them to swallow. In a sense, it's like
crypto and tech. Those are two that pretty much have the same weight in a lot of people's minds. Like, yeah, I'm staying away from that. Yeah, I'm staying away from that. I don't know how to handle those guys.
I can't even describe like exactly how Bitcoin works if it makes anyone feel better. And I'm a tech guy, you know, but I understand it's the future because it's like, you know, when you have a transparent financial system that, you know, can't really be stopped, and it's fair, it's apolitical. Like that's what the world needs. It needs that. No one can just go in there and print a bunch of Bitcoin. You know, like we need these systems where it makes our life better. And there are definitely forces that don't want Bitcoin to succeed. But I think that if the world adopted something like Bitcoin, it would be a hell of a lot. We'd have a better world is what it would come down to. There'd probably be less war. There'd be more freedom, be a lot of amazing things if the world embraced Bitcoin. But going back to it, that's tech. If the world embraces tech, and if you spent just the same amount of time being intrigued and researching like technology and trying to maybe harness a skill around like creating content or whatever, if you spent the same amount of time that you are being fearful and like avoiding it, if you spent that same amount of time diving into it, you'd realize it's not that scary. You'd actually learn something, and you'd probably be passionate about it.
Well, I think that's actually true for anything and you use the correct word, I think, that you're passionate about. If you have a passion for something, it's easy to dive into it because you're passionate. Because I gotta know more about this thing. I gotta do more. I gotta handle more. I gotta absorb this stuff. I gotta pick it up and just see what I can do with it. I think the biggest thing to hold people back is when they're not passionate about something, and then they're trying to talk themselves into it.
Absolutely.
And they say, you know, and now all of a sudden they're basically pushing a rock uphill at that point. Because how can you really do something that you really don't love with, you know, throwing yourself into it? You can do it for a time. I mean, I've interviewed people here on the show who have done that for a time. They burned themselves out. they burn themselves to a crisp, and then they write a book about how you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, there's
But,
seasons. There's seasons of growth, and like, just because you're doing something now doesn't mean you're going to be doing it 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
true. Yeah.
You may have a season of financial success in a particular industry, and then you just, you know what, it's time to move on to something else. Like you don't have to marry an industry, just like you don't have to marry an investment. If you're invested in a stock and you're like, you know what, I'm going to take profit on this and roll it into real estate, I'm going to start doing that. Like no one is forcing you to do, well, for the most part. I don't know everyone's situation that's listening to this, but like you have the ability to spend your time how you want to spend it. And I think that you have to be clear on what you want. If you're either in line with what you want with your actions, or you're in the way. So for me, I wanted freedom. I wanted to be able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. I wanted to be able, once I had my son, he's 3 years old now. It's like, that was a major shift too. Like, okay, legacy, like what am I going to hand down to him? I need a business that can create residual income, like real residual. I need something that if I died tomorrow, that it could still run without me. And it could be around for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Something like, just, and it all comes back to the internet for me, which again, some people, it scares them. Internet, I need to work with my hands, whatever. But even on the internet, you could film a video of you working with your hands and build a following. And like, so there's no excuses when it all comes down to it.
Yeah, it's really just another tool. And when you understand it as a tool, that kind of takes a lot of the strain out of it, I think.
For sure.
I think we kind of talk ourselves out of stuff. You expressed it very nicely, the way you said it. But really, that's what we do. We talk ourselves out of stuff. The other thought that was occurring to me as you were talking there was, your son. And you were talking in terms of the legacy, but also that's another example of how passions develop. You mentioned how we don't do the same thing forever. We don't have to do the same thing forever. My dad did that. My dad worked for one company for 44 years. That was his entire career. But that era is long, long gone.
Oh, it's different now.
Yeah.
It's different. I was just telling, because we just put my son in daycare. And I was telling, my wife, I was like, just the whole education system now is totally, it needs to adapt to what's going on in the world, because you can go build a business so easily these days with a specialized skill that requires no degree. Like an example, if you understand how to build a funnel, which is a website, let's say a website, but the website is designed to take people to a particular step. And then you understand how to run some ads, paid ads on social media. Like you understand how to reach a target audience, and maybe a guy that can shoot content, and you have a few businesses in your area. So you could put those businesses on a retainer for $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month, depending on the size of the business. And with some basic skills, like in even outsourcing, using some people in the Philippines, et cetera, like for really low costs, you could easily go build a $5,000, $10,000 a month net income. And you don't need a fancy college degree. And you could work remote. Like the world is so much different. These opportunities didn't really exist.
Right.
Even, 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So the same, because most people, I think most people go to school in hopes that they're going to be prepared to, and have a status to get hired and have a high paying job. But, more and more companies are searching for automations. They're searching for softwares to replace people. They're searching for, and everything's changing so rapidly. So when I just think about all the things that I learned in school that have just no applicable use to me in this day and age, and what I really went through to learn what I know now. And it's no knock on the education system, because there are great things that you can learn. And especially if you're going to be like a surgeon, or, some really, like, I don't want a surgeon working on me who watched YouTube videos. I want someone.
That's a good point.
I want a surgeon who went to like 8,
well,
10
what's the
years
TV
of
screen
school.
for there? Hold on a second.
Yeah. DIY surgery. But yeah, it's such a different time, man. Like the schooling system. And I think that if your real goal is to make money, then you should look at what people are doing to generate money online. And especially if you have kids, if you're listening to this and you have kids, you should be telling them to like find on social media these guys that are, there's just so many things that run through my mind when it comes to making money. There's like e-commerce is an industry, credit and funding, software and apps. I mean, like I have at any given time on a month, probably 4 or 5 different income, streams coming in. They're all based around the internet, but they all serve different purposes. Like we have investors that come into our e-commerce company and, we charge 35 grand, 50 grand for them to come on in. And then we're taking that money and sourcing and hiring and training employees and doing all that and the systems around that. And then we have a credit and funding business to where we're helping clients secure large lines of credit. And then we have real estate, investments going on. I have my software development business and I have, all of these things lined up. But it's like every year I'm kind of adding an extra thing or finding something that can fit in the flywheel. Because like if you have an investor that you work with that it's like, hey, I want to give you 35 grand to do said service. And then you also have this other thing that's for people with really good credit, aka getting them funding, like 0% interest. Now it's like that investor that gave me 35 grand, they probably want to get an increased credit line too. So now I'm double dipping. I'm helping an investor run an e-commerce business. I'm helping them get credit lines. Maybe if someone doesn't qualify for the credit line, I can pass them over to a credit repair business and work out a relationship with that. Then it's like all of these internet businesses, a lot of them have overlap is what I've found out over the years. And so if you can figure out a good system to generate lead flow with like content, ads, etc., like getting the exposure out there, there are so many synergistic businesses that work together. And I wish I could show you, but there's been so many times where it's like I have a piece of content out there, I get an interested, investor, I help them get credit, I help them with the e-commerce business. Then it's like now they're wanting to be my friend forever, because I've helped them out financially. And it's like, what else do you have that I could invest in? And it's like, oh, well, maybe there's something down the road or whatever. But if you or any one of your if you have kids, you're listening to this, just pay attention to what's going online, because there's so many different ways that you can make money online these days. I would say just pick one, because it can be overwhelming. Like, well, what do I want to go into? Just like pick like, okay, I'm going to learn about e-commerce and learn about it, because you have time to figure out if you like it or don't like it, and you can pivot into something else. Like I have friends that they run YouTube channels and they outsource, some of them are running their own YouTube channels and making all the content. And then some of them are outsourcing the content to be made by VAs. And they have like faceless channels that are making hundreds of dollars per week that are just getting paid off the advertising, because people advertise on YouTube. So these videos, they gain traction and they get paid that way. And it's like, think about that. You're just making content and getting paid. That's it. You know, like that's not that difficult to fathom, because people need to advertise on YouTube. YouTube is huge. It's owned by Google. And so again, going back to the online side of things, tons of ways to make money online. E-commerce is my backbone. That's where my face is, showing people how to really create more passive income in the e-commerce space. But then there are, other kind of legs to the spider, if you will, that are all internet-based streams.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Once you dig into this, it's like going down any rabbit hole. Only it's like a mammoth rabbit hole that just has 1,000 different paths leading off of it. 1,000 paths.
There are tons of different ways. I'm like, oh man, I didn't know that was so powerful. Like
Yeah.
to make income that way. All the time I learn about different niches that people are crushing it with, and it blows me away. And it's just these new sectors, new industries are being created, and it's even tough for someone like me to keep up. So don't feel bad if you feel
it's tough for anybody to keep up. I mean, my background was tech, and I can barely keep up with it, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, I totally get that. I resonate with that entirely. What you guys offer obviously is a great solution for somebody who has some money to invest. They want to do this stuff. They don't want to have to do it themselves. They understand the value of delegating and having a whole team do that for them. And so undoubtedly any listeners who are tuning in who want to do something like that, they're going to probably be reaching out to you. But I'm also thinking about listeners who are at that beginning point. They don't have the funds to do all that kind of thing. You know, they've thought about perhaps trying to do something. They aren't really sure what exactly. Maybe they have an idea, maybe they don't. Maybe they aren't really sure whether or not their idea would actually gain traction. There are people who wanted to buy whatever their product or services and so on and so forth. But they at least have enough gumption that they want to try to do something. And you said a key phrase, dive in and start doing it. But let's talk about that for a bit. What do you do when you want to dive in and start something, an X, whatever that X might
Yeah.
be?
Well, I'll give you an example. So this was about 4 months ago. Probably about 4, yeah. I had seen one of my friends post that his dad got a bunch of money back with a government program called the ERC funds. ERC stands for Employee Retention Credit. I'd never heard about it before. I was like, this is new to me. It's like PPP, but except it's not a loan. If a business owner has W-2 employees, they can qualify for up to 26 grand per employee. Then my brain starts churning, start doing some research. I see there's some companies providing that as a service, and they take a back end fee and they'll like cover the upfront costs for the CPAs. I'm like, oh, this is brilliant, because if a business can, with 10 employees times 26 grand, that's 260 grand. If they're charging nothing and then take, let's say 15% on the back end, like these are big checks that can get cut. You know, we're talking upwards of 100, 200, $500,000 on like one deal that you could net, depending on the size of the business. So, you know, over the years, I've just collected the right people in my network, like from CPAs to attorneys, et cetera. So like I talked to my partner, Tim, that I do all my software development with. I said, hey, Tim, have you seen this? You think it's real? He said, let me talk to a couple CPAs. He verified info. One of our CPAs had done dozens of these already. We're like, why don't you tell us about this? You know? And then I said, okay, well, let's put together a system to help business owners. Let's basically copy what other companies are doing and provide this as a service, and try it for like 60 to 90 days and see if we can get some leads to come in, and just as like a side hustle type thing. And so, you know, we got the legal docs created, which wasn't that hard. We looked at a few other companies out there, copied, had our attorney change it with, you know, some different verbiage and whatnot, so it's not the exact same. And then we have, you know, attorney escrow, a few other components. And I reached out to a few friends of mine that are like affiliates that I knew would like, an affiliate would just be someone who could be like a sales rep that maybe knows business owners. So I just reached out to a few people, business owners direct, and then other people that I knew who knew business owners. Like, look, I'll give you, you know, 5% commissions if you can just introduce me to a business owner who has W-2 employees, and let's see if we can get them qualified. And within 30 days of turning on the system, having some content, quick little funnel, little application page, like nothing crazy, just like a one-pager website, and just having the back-end systems ready, we processed like closer to 2 million. It's like $1.7 million in ERC credits. So that was something as like a complete side hustle. And then, you know, we're taking like roughly, depends on the size of the deal, but usually about 20% is what we'll take on the back end. So you think about that, it's like business owners get some major win, we get a win, our CPAs get paid. Everyone wins in that case, an affiliate. So like that was a something that it was an idea, and I turned it into a profitable cash flow business in less than a month. But I had an unfair advantage in the sense that if you were to compare that to the average person, it would have, first off, they probably wouldn't have the belief that they could do it. Second, they didn't have the resources like this. Maybe they have a CPA. Not all CPAs know how to do this. It's similar to like filing a federal grant. It's not this. It's not, you know, usually CPAs work in their box.
Right.
Like, I know how to do this strategy and this strategy.
Well, everybody does.
Yeah. And everyone does for sure work in their box. Some people's boxes are bigger than others. So,
yes.
So like if you went to a local tax firm, like a brick and mortar place around your area, and said, hey, will you teach me how I made $10 million this year, and teach me how to shelter my money through a business trust into a family trust into a foundation, they're going to be like, you need to get out of here right now.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Away.
Like versus, you know, if you're working with like Trump's CPA or something, he'd be like, oh, I know how to do that. You know, bring it over here, bring me your business. And it's it's just different CPAs know different things. And so, you know, I had lucky that a couple of our CPAs that we had, you know, made connections with over the years knew how to do this. So just hired them on as contractors. And, you know, it's just like, that's another little just profit center. Like, and not everything that you do is going to be a huge win. It's not. Like, maybe it's a home run. Like, our e-commerce offer has been a huge home run. The software development has been more of like a steady growing business for me that, you know, we're doing. Don't get it twisted. It's a multi-million-dollar business per year, and it's scaling, but it's not as profitable as the e-commerce business. So it's like e-commerce hyper profitable. The software is not as profitable, but it's a long-term build out. In the future, there's potential to exit that, right? Like you're selling the data. You're selling, when I say exit, I mean sell the company, right? So like, how much are tech companies getting sold for? A lot of them have like 20x multiples, meaning that you could sell the company for like 20x what it makes per year, what it nets per year. So if your company's netting $1 million a year, imagine selling it for 20 million,
right?
You know, and you're just like cash out and you're just done and you have 20 million liquid. That's friggin' fantastic. So you know, over time, it's like you stack skills, you stack connections, you stack confidence too. And because you've been in the game a little bit longer, you start to recognize like what may or may not be a winner. And even if you're super hyper confident in something, it may not work out. You know, I told myself, because it's like, I'm busy. I have the e-commerce business. I have the software business. It's like, if I can lightly throw mud at the wall and it sticks, I'll put some more bandwidth into it. And when I saw that, like 1.7 million in credits we filed, I was like, geez, there's legs on this business model. We could go, you know, if I have a dozen more affiliates, or let's say 50 affiliates, 100 affiliates out there that are smiling and dialing and cold calling businesses, or like going to meetings and like, you know, whatever, they're door knocking or however they're doing it, getting a lead. This is very duplicatable and it's very lucrative. So, you know, that's one of those things where now, and then I use social media to, lightly. I mean, I put up probably like 5 or 6 posts on social media and just did it the right way. They got some good views. Like one of the videos got like 50,000 views, and I had like 50, probably around like 30 to 50 people in that range hit me up saying, hey, I want to be an affiliate for your company, because I positioned it right. And then it was like, off that one piece of content, I had like 30 to 50 people hit me up, say, hey, I want to be an affiliate. And what happens is when they generate a lead, that lead gets passed directly to one of my CPAs, and my CPA does all the work. I'm not the one doing the work. Maybe I have one call with the business owner just to kind of like pre-qualify them, but then from there on out, they're working with the CPA. And then I just like send them a contract when it's time to actually, you know, move the deal forward. So it's a very from the time to energy to money ratio. That's a business that kicks ass. Now, how long is that going to be around? Maybe 2 to 3 years for that government program. But, you know, it's kind of like a cash grab, but while the getting's good, you get after it, you know, just like anything in real estate. You think that the price of real estate's always going to be up? No. But, you know, when rates are low, the houses are moving. So you take advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves. So like for me, I'm an opportunistic type of person. When I see something and I have a good gut feeling, I think like sometimes what happens is when you see a business model and you have a certain feeling and then you pursue that feeling and you see success, you may get that. I've noticed that like an investor said, hey, I just got that feeling. And I've had that feeling with a couple of business models. And like when I got that feeling, because I recognize everything's a feeling. When I'm talking to someone, I get a certain feeling when I'm talking to them. When I look at a business model, I get a certain feeling. And when you can trust your intuition, if you're really sensitive on that, you're like in line with your energetic alignment is there. You'll start to kind of identify those feelings and create patterns from them. And recognize like, oh, that's the same feeling I got when I looked at this, and that was a home run. So that's probably a sign I should at least put some time and energy into figuring out if this could be a winner. And, you know, just the rest you'll figure out along the way. But coming from someone like me, I don't have a degree in finance. I'm not a tax professional, nothing, but I'm helping business owners get a lot in funding. And it's like, I'm the California surfer kid that just sees business models and understands how to put people in position.
Well,
So
you're also the kind of interview I like to have, because you literally in the course of all the things that you say, you give me like 100 different directions I can go with my next question, and you make it just so easy. Like,
you
oh
got
my
to choose
god,
one.
it's
You got to
like being
choose
a kid
one.
in the candy store. Which way am I going to go here? It's wonderful. I'm going to go in the direction of a very basic point that I brought up a lot here on the show, because I think you're a great example of it, and that is, in my view, are abstractly speaking, there are two fundamental things that make it possible to determine whether or not someone is going to be successful in any way in their lives. And this actually comes out of positive psychology research. So this is actually research based.
Mhm.
One is, how confident are you? How much do you love yourself? How do you care about yourself? What's your level of self-esteem? How do you see yourself in the world among other people? All that kind of stuff. The second is directly related, and that is, how connected are you? What's your level of social connectedness? Because
Mm.
those two factors, in fact, the second one, that I've said this many times, but there's a study that was done by Sean Aker, one of the leading spokesmen of the positive psychology movement. He went to Harvard University, and he later worked at Harvard in their positive psychology department. And he did a study where he was trying to identify what would make a Harvard student succeed
Mhm.
in whatever they were doing in life. And he thought it was particularly important because of how much stress Harvard students have. So, I could see the motivation behind the study. Well, he did this long study, all these questions. He was investigating everything from, what their family ties were, where they came from, what their economics were, how do they spend their day? Did they study in a study hall? Did they go to, meet with the professors? How did they join study groups? What was he asked all these questions. He couldn't find any correlation. There was nothing in there that would explain to him whether or not, or predict accurately for him, whether that person was going to be successful later on, because he would track it later on and find there's no correlation except for one question. And it was the one he threw in at the last second. The one question that answered it for him with like a 70% accuracy was, how socially connected were they? Because it turns out the degree of social connectedness you have, first of all, becomes the basis for how do you get through the hard times, because you have people that you can talk to. And second of all, how socially connected you are indicates how social you are. So how well you're able to connect with other people. And those connections lead to connections, lead to connections. It's the old
Mhm.
concept of networking. Today we do networking through the internet, but it's still a variation of networking. It's the same thing. And the networking is all about how you connect, and why you connect, and who you connect to, and what you learn from them, and so on and so forth. Your story is just full of connections.
Yeah.
I mean, one
Yeah, but
connection
the
after another.
connections, so the connections, right? Like I'll give you a really good example of the type of connections that I have and how they were established, and like
Yeah,
the
that's good.
meaningful ones versus the non-meaningful ones. So when I was in affiliate marketing, this was probably when I was about 22 years old. My buddy Michael, who I got connected to just completely randomly, and we started making some money online together.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Hey, I know this guy Manny down in San Diego. We should go meet with him. I think that like maybe he could help us, get to that next level in business, whatever." And I
Mhm.
go meet with Manny, and like we were two alphas, like we're trying to like, how do we work together, but at the same time,
Yeah.
like business relationship at the time wasn't right, but like friendship was.
Mm.
So just stayed friends. And like we had one investment that we're gonna do together, and it like completely failed.
Mm.
Completely failed. And then I ended up like taking the hit for him in a sense, because like I had brought the situation to his attention, like brought the deal to the table. And he never forgot that. Like he said, Logan is a real friend. Like he took the bullet for me
Mm.
on
Mhm.
that. And then Manny leveled up. Like I'm talking about, he's my partner in e-commerce. So he was one of the guys that like just absolutely crushed out of the park in the beginning with Amazon and everything else. And then, he had reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to bring you on as like the face of the company and to help us with client acquisition. You're great with high ticket and dealing with investors and making sure that everything can run great on the front end. Let me handle the back end." And we've had that friendship on and off. Like whenever I go down to San Diego, I'd always meet up with him and stuff. And I completely had forgot that this bad investment took place, but like he remembered it and he brought it up, like, hey, that's one of those things where I was willing to have you on board because I trusted you outside of just money. Like it was you were real to me far before like I really was making millions a year type of deal.
Right.
So that's an example of just like from tacos to millions of dollars, right? Meeting at a taco shop to making millions of dollars years later. My business partner, Tim, give me 1 second. I got my son opening the door.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
So
we always love it. We always love it whenever the kids photobomb on the program.
Oh yeah.
It just shows the reality of it. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And then so back when I was in affiliate marketing too, probably about 22, 23, around the same area. I got a Facebook message from this guy, Tim, and Tim was in Kuwait and he had seen some of my marketing online and he's like, hey, I'm really just curious on what you do. Your marketing is incredible. Like, who are your mentors? I want to like meet you as a person. And he ended up coming out to California and we met in person. And he was doing private contracting work in Kuwait at the time. And then like it was about probably 6 months, a year later, whatever, like we stayed in contact and then he came out to California. We met in person and we really just jived. And he was pitching me on software. Like, hey, have you ever thought about getting involved in software? You can create the marketing. We could create a tool, do this, that, the other. And, you know, he's now, he was the one that originally brought the idea of True Fans to my attention. Hey, have you ever thought about building a platform that could help influencers monetize their content? I was like, ding, that's something that could be a $1 billion company. So, you know, we found developers together. He more so handled like the technical stuff with kind of the liaison between like him and I would come up with the ideas and then he would figure out the way to articulate them to the developers because these guys are like cyborgs. These developers, they don't speak human, they speak code. They're difficult to deal with.
This is true.
Especially you add like
a very left brain technology. It really is.
You add an Indian accent to the mix and some time zone differences and stuff, and it becomes very difficult. You know, and he's done an incredible job of being like more a project manager, more technical, and like I've focused on the creative side, and it's just worked out great. So it's like one of my business partners we met at a taco shop. One of my business partners we met on Facebook, and he was in Kuwait, you know, doing private content. And then it's like years later, fast forward, both of those businesses have done millions of dollars. And it's like those two connections were like, but those were the real meaningful connections. But then there's sub connections. It's like all of the different people that, you know, then put money into the businesses because of the powerful connection that was originally sparked on with the people who matter. So an example would be like, you know, with Manny, that spark of a connection happened. The business model was created. And then it's like, okay, I go to work and create content. Now an investor comes in and, you know, let's say they give us 35 grand or whatever. And it's like money flows into the company. And then that just happens over and over again. But it was from that original spark of a relationship with Manny. Same thing goes on the software, original spark of the relationship with Tim. And it's like, keep you don't need a lot of people. How would I put this? You don't, for me, like I keep my circle very small of like people I really spend time with or talk to on a daily basis. It's like, I don't add many new friends to my life. Like really, I haven't added probably any new friends that I talk with consistently on a weekly basis in multiple years. You know, like I have Tim, I have Manny, I have my parents, I have like a couple of close friends that I still stay in contact with from California. And then it's like we have our employees and stuff that we connect with on a day-to-day basis, but like they're not on the same level of you know, you don't talk about the same shit that you talk to your friends. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? You know, you can be transparent and real. And like, if something's not going well, you're not going to tell your employees, hey, this isn't going well. Like you know, so it's just the circle really hasn't grown all that much.
Well, it doesn't really need to. I think that's what the whole point of the social connectedness thing is. That once you develop a social network to stage X, whatever X is, you got what you need. Yeah. And as long as it's serving you in all the ways you need to be served, you're right. You don't need to build it out. The reason that you built out the network is because you need some service.
And there are different people that like I just keep completely compartmentalized too when it comes to different aspects of my life. Like I do a lot of crypto investing, but like I have a subset of my degenerate friends that are just like all crypto, and that's what they eat, breathe, live, die for. And it's like we don't need to go meet up in person or anything. We can just talk smack in a chat, and like everyone's doing their own research and stuff. And like there have been some amazing investments that have come through just a simple group chat. But these guys that I deal with are like finance majors or like wealth managers at JP Morgan. Like a lot of these guys are very savvy.
Yeah.
A lot of them have made millions of dollars in traditional business or outside in crypto, etc. It's like we just have a degenerate chat. When I say DJs, is like people that are just like willing to kind of gamble, but like really what we are is like modern day VCs, but in crypto, like a VC venture capitalist, because that's what you're doing with a lot of these crypto projects. It's like if they're sub let's say $100 million market cap project, they're not like a multi-billion or $1 trillion market cap like Apple or whatever. It's like you're gambling, but if you can find the really good technology in those unicorns at an early stage, I mean, like we had one project that we invested in that did like a 50x in on capital. It's like that's hard to fathom. That means if you had $1,000 invested, you would have made $50,000. Like, and it's just crazy because that it goes back to technology, right? Which we were originally talking about is like the crypto is technology, but then you also have technology of the phone and like group chats and people being able to do research and like really there's no excuse why. I'll take this even one step kind of like back. So it would be from a logistics or like sequence standpoint of what you should do. It's like connect with people, because that's what you're saying, like your connectedness. So I've connected with people. Like one of my buddies, Omar from high school, he was the one that like really got me into crypto.
Oh, okay.
Just so happens that he's a multi-millionaire now, and he knows a ton. So like his connections bridged me into a lot of really savvy people in crypto. But it's like that. There's a connection that I made that I retained since high school that just so happened to be, like very successful in the cryptocurrency market. I just happened, like you go back to making connections. If you're afraid to make connections, you don't deserve to make money. You don't. You really don't.
It's a tough real world reality right there, but it's a good one. It's a good one.
If you're not willing to make connections with people, you're missing out on what they know, and not only what they know, but what the people that they know. So like, and they may get and it's so crazy to think that, because like these companies or business models, etc., like a lot of them didn't come from me directly. Like I'm almost, just because I have a good net out there as far as like it's like I have a big net. I'm able to capture a lot of fish. I have big network that captures a lot of fish dollars through being aware and have my finger on the pulse and seeing what's hot and what's not, and catching a narrative before the general public catches a narrative. Because like what people are plugged into, like especially in like the crypto world, if you're like really neck deep into the crypto space, like you see narratives before the public. And if you see that a narrative, something that's like like DeFi, what the fuck, what was DeFi? Decentralized finance, like that, all of a sudden, all the projects that were in DeFi exploded in price. But people that were really plugged in, the more degenerate type people, like that live and breathe on Twitter and like, they do that. It's like they caught on to something and they turned a little bit of money into a ton of money. But the biggest problem I see with investing is like people not taking profit. And I'm guilty of that to an extent.
What do you mean by that?
Taking profit is like, let's say that, you're up 100% on a trade.
Okay.
You invest in something, it's up 100%, 200%, 300. I just had a trade that went up 350%. I took profit, took it all out. I was like, it's a bear market, meaning that things are going down in general. And I made 350%. I'd be an idiot to not take profit on this. And I was talking to my buddy, and I'm like, it could go up 5x, 10x. And he's like, well, would you be mad at yourself if it went to zero? I was like, yeah. He's like, would you be mad at yourself for getting a 350% gain? I said, no. So then what are you waiting for? Take it all out.
That's good logic. I like that.
And I was like, you know what? You're right. And that's coming from a guy, that's been in those positions, right?
Well, that raises another interesting question. Maybe the last one before we get some info from you about how to reach out to you.
For sure.
But you mentioned the word mentor before. Who are your mentors? Tell us about what you look for in a mentor.
So I told you like that I just study a lot of marketing materials and
Mm,
uh, that for a long time was just no like in-person mentors, but just studying how people moved that
mhm.
were making more money than me
Right.
in the online space and whatnot, seeing how they
Mhm.
operated. And then I would say like a because a lot of my friends are like I'm a mentor in some ways to them and they're a mentor to me.
Oh, okay.
Like my friend Manny, like I you know, I he 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 taught he's been very influential to me for telling me how the world really is versus how my view is on it. Because everyone, depending on your depending on your upbringing, you're gonna have a different view of the world. Like he was an
Mm,
orphan who grew
mhm,
up in New York. His dad left him when he was like 5 years old in a room, and his dad was
mm.
a train killer, Navy SEAL, like just left him, and he had to like fend for his own through like the whole foster system and everything.
Wow,
And he had
yeah.
a completely different upbringing, and he's done extremely well for himself.
Mm.
Better than he made more last year than most people will make in the rest of their entire lives, without a doubt.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like you came against all odds. You came from, and he's super connected. Going back to your connectedness, like he is super, super connected. Everywhere he goes, he knows someone, and like they all love him. So it's
Mhm.
like your likability index and what you know and who you know and all that. He's at a level 10. Um, but he's been real with me. Like one of those things he told me with investing, he's like selling to strength. Like when things are pumping, most people get greedy and they want to hold on. It's like that's the opportune time when you sell. Like you sell into strength because that's what the smart people do. That's what the whales are doing. The whales are using the retail, like the average investor. Oh my god, it's going up. They're using them as liquidity to get out of their trade. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? To get out.
Mhm.
I'm trying to use
Mhm.
because like I pump this to get the dummies. Oh well, it's continuing to go up. No, 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 no. It's about to go down as soon as I sell out, and you are literally buying my bag as I'm leaving. And so just things like that, just I ask him all the time, what do you think about this? What's the angle on this? And he's because he is almost like unplugged from the matrix completely from a financial standpoint. Like he can do what he wants when he wants. He's also, people are like afraid of lawsuits and whatnot. And it's like when you get big enough in business, getting sued is like a normal thing, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
Um, and there's been so many times, like when you hear from the media, for example, like, oh, Trump didn't pay his taxes. He needs to do this. He needs like, well, who's the tax guy that like structured it in a way that made that okay? And I'm not endorsing his behavior or whatever. Like, I'm
Sure.
not. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
not about. This is just strictly about like media, matrix, people plugged into versus the reality and taking advantage of the rules and not necessarily breaking laws.
Mhm.
Like, he educated me on Trump basically like building all these buildings and then like not paying the people or whatever, and then like taking them to
Yeah.
court and settling at a very fraction of the cost. And it's like that was perfectly legal because you're going through the legal system. It's like, damn, I didn't know that. And when you have a big enough legal team and whatnot, it's like you become an invisible mountain. People
Mm.
think all the time, oh, I'll take them to court. Well, you're going to lose so much money in the legal system. And if you have a good legal team, like no one can really touch you for to an extent. And I'm not saying that to endorse any bad behavior or whatever it is. But like when you're in bigger business and you're dealing with millions of dollars and whatnot, the world is savage. Like what he's kind of instilled in me is more so the realization of like the thin veil of civilization
Yeah.
in the
Mhm.
sense that, rich people don't, for the most part, have punishment. They might get like financial crimes, which is like a fee, but they pay off the fee. It's like rules for thee and not for me. And you
Yes.
need to do whatever you can do to get as much money as possible, like as ethically as possible. But usually, like the people that make the most amount of money in the world are like also not doing things by the book. They're playing
Very
in gray
often.
areas. You know what I mean?
Very often.
So it's like having a moral compass, but realizing the world for as it is, not for what it's portrayed as through the media, but like really seeing through it and understanding what are the angles and what are the motives at scale, like looking at a global scale. And the world is more, just being honest, the world is more corrupt and kind of scary than I think it's ever been from a perspective of people rolling over so easily, you know, like we've just given up so many freedoms in the past couple years. And like during times of crisis, there is opportunity. Like I was telling you about the ERC funds. Like that's a program that was launched after this crisis came. So it's like through crisis, now another opportunity. Most people don't know about it. Most people are going to do anything about it. They're going to go complain about the crisis that just took place. Not me. I'm looking for opportunities. And like there, you know, another thing that he taught me is like, there's always an opportunity. There's always a bull run somewhere. Like we may be in a bearish market, whatever, but there's a bull market somewhere. Like if you're in the pandemic, what's selling really well? Masks. It's like, how do I get into that manufacturing? There's always going to be something that's pumping or doing well in times of crisis. And, you know, just being a bit more savage is just things that I've learned specifically from him. But then I have, you know, my other buddies who keep me in line that are more like, just very, very about family. Like my business partner, Tim, he's like, I'm rich, bro. He's not nearly as rich as my other business partner, man. Not nearly as rich. But he's rich in the sense that he appreciates his wife. He appreciates his kids.
I would say that's a better kind of rich in some ways.
A different type of rich, you know, it's totally different. And so like, I get a very good balance between, it's like ping pong. Like I get, I'm like hanging out with him. I'm like a little bit more savage with Manny. I'm a little bit like more empathetic when I'm around Tim. And and it's just great having those types of different personalities around you. Because like if I'm seeing something, I'm not going to go to Tim and ask, like if I see something crazy on the news or like you know, something that's really, I just feel like there's an angle behind it. Who am I going to? I'm going to my buddy Manny. Hey, what do you think is about to happen? Like why is the media positioning it this way? He's going to see right through it. Everything that dude tells me is like a see-through. Oh, here's the real play. Here's what's going on. It's chess. It's mental warfare. It's chess with him. Like that's how he thinks. And it's just spot on all the time. When I think, hey man, like if I got in an argument with this person or whatever, how do you think I should handle this situation? I asked my buddy Tim. You know, it's like these are mentors in different ways in my life. And then you have like your, you know, reading books, etc. Like, but from a friend, my friends are all mentors to me. Everyone in my circle is a superior to me in some way, shape, or form. And I try to take notes and listen to them. And it's panned out pretty well so far.
That's fabulous. This is one of those interviews where the hour is up and you say, well, can I have another one, please? but unfortunately, we can't do that right now. Before we let you go, we got to get some info from you. Now, you mentioned you have a couple of different programs. Some people listening might be interested in those. So tell us about the programs first. Yeah.
So the e-commerce automation business that we have is called eTelligence. You can go to etelligenceautomation.com. I'll send you over the links if you want to like add
we'll
it
put
into
them in the show notes.
Perfect. I'll send it over to you. And then our main for true fans, you can go to truefans.com, true fans with a Z, true fans. And that's about it. You know, we like from a forward facing perspective, most people see my face attached to the e-commerce business. You don't really see me too much with the true fans business because it's not me who's driving the force there. It's the thousands of content creators who use true fans that generate the income on that platform. Right. So it's kind of like I'm almost in like the payment processing business for content.
That's not too bad a business to be in, I'll tell you.
I call it like the PayPal of content. You know, they make money off transactions. There you go. Same here. But yeah, if you're an investor with capital, you should definitely check out our eTelligence website. And you'll be able to see case studies of people that we work with, how our business model works. You know, it's a phenomenal business model for people with capital that want to make that money work for them, but don't necessarily want to learn any technical skills or devote a lot of time. You know, you can literally just basically hire us on to be the operations team. Just like in if you had real estate, you have a property management company. Right. Imagine us being like a digital property management company here to do all day-to-day operations on your store, scale it up, manage the orders, everything's done for you. And we're just leveraging your capital to be able to create, you know, a profit split between us. So that's how that works. But yeah, hopefully hopefully all of you guys listening in, you got some value and maybe some motivation to just get off your butt and do what you know you should be doing. I
think everybody's going to take a different thing away from it. Everybody's going to have something that's their own particular angle, and they heard one thing or two, or perhaps with you 5 things that they actually liked and said, yeah, I got to take that on board. That's great. So Logan Shippy, first of all, thank you so much for joining me on the program, sharing your in-depth knowledge. Really, really very impressed with all the things that you've done. I also want to tell you something that I've been making it a practice to do lately because I think it's important. On behalf of all the people who you will never see, you'll never hear, who you have influenced, whom you've helped, given some information to, maybe you said something that gave them a little bit of a kick and said, yeah, okay, I got to go do something. On behalf of those people that you'll never see, I want to thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for the help that you give to people that, yeah, you'll never meet them, but you touch their lives. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate you saying that, because, you know, those are things you don't necessarily think about, but there are people that reach out to me from time to time like, dude, I've been following you. You inspire me. You did this, you did that. And it's like, hell yeah. You know, you love hearing those little stories mean a lot more from like
they do
the satisfied, like versus $1 coming into the bank account, $100,000. I'd rather get a story like that, like a DM where I impacted someone's life, than seeing, you know, more money come in on a day in the business. You know, it's like
very satisfying.
Way different satisfaction level for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this is great. Well, again, thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.